Okay. Are we all set to go? Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our pre-town meeting. So we gather this evening at Oak as a run-through of what is in the warrant and report from the Finance Committee. We'll also run through the list of bundles and what have you. For the new town meeting members who are present, anything that isn't jiving, just raise your hand and we can cover it. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. With me, my name is Jim Kane. I'm town moderator. With me is the town manager, Kevin Mizikar. We have a litany of elected and appointed officials: Therese Flynn, Beth Cassavant, her daughter, and Michelle and John Samia, and then this crew of bureaucrats up front: Alex, David, and what's your first name? Keith Baldinger. So there we have it. And of course, we want to thank our good friends from SPAC for broadcasting this evening. And the town clerk, I believe, has sworn in all the new members or newly elected members or re-elected members who have come in this evening as well. So you all received a package, I think, last weekend, which contained a variety of materials. Most importantly, the report and recommendations of the Finance Committee. It's yellow this year. I encourage you to go through it from one end to the other. It has the town meeting procedures on the first white page as well. And then you also go through and you can find a host of other information leading up to the report of the Finance Committee and then every one of the articles. And also within the package was a variety of materials describing support materials for each article, such as a zoning article. You may have a map or what have you. And then, of course, we have the actual motions as well. So the objective this evening is to answer any questions. We focus more on the technical end of what is being presented than we do on, pre-debating a particular article that you may have a particular viewpoint on. Has everybody had a chance to look at their package, to get familiar with it and so forth? Any questions off the bat? No? Okay, very good. So, Kevin, anything that you'd like to say in terms of an open?
No, I think that's...
Okay. One thing I do want to point out to folks is I believe you and your team did a show at SPAC. So you might just tell them.
Sure.
Mark, do you know when that show broadcasts, or is it on your normal litany of shows?
It's in a normal rotation. I don't know the exact times off the top of my head, but it's available 24/7 on YouTube.
Okay, there you go.
So as we customarily do for each town meeting in the spring and then the fall, town staff have provided an overview of each and every warrant article, and that's available through the Shrewsbury Media Connection YouTube page, and also, as Mr. Sarah just mentioned, it's running in rotation on the TV, government TV channel. So we walk through the 54 warrant articles and provide a summary overview of the purpose of each article and any relevant details. It's a Cliff Notes version to town meeting. It's only 52 minutes long, so it's a good way to quickly acclimate yourself to what's in the warrant and get you started on your journey towards town meeting.
We will hopefully have a quorum at 10 minutes of 7 on Monday evening and likely Tuesday evening. And then we'll get underway at 7 o'clock, and I will go through a bit of a spiel at the beginning, reminding folks that we operate under, obviously, the laws of the Commonwealth, our own town bylaws, and town meeting time as we work our way through the articles within the annual town meeting. You should have also received a large colored piece of paper as well that will walk you through how we have bundled them. Now, we bundle for ease of those that are generally the types of articles that are on regularly. However, each article is taken independently because we want anybody with a question to have a chance to specifically go through each one of them. So what I'd like to do now, unless there are any other questions, just walk through. We'll start at 7. I'll do my spiel. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. We will then get right into the meeting with Article 1. I will call the article. The chair of the Board of Select Board will then move the printed motion under that article. The vice chair will second it. I'll then ask for a recommendation of the Finance Committee, which is in the book. And then I will go to Mr. Mizikar in most cases, the first one, and we'll get into this. I won't bother him with it, but he will then give a crisp, succinct overview of that particular article. In the event people are reading it one way, you can get his viewpoint on it, and then, of course, we'll open it to any questions. Yes, sir. Oh, you should have received one in the mail. Okay. Is the clerk still here? So we have a new town meeting member who has not received his package. Can he come by the office tomorrow and pick one up? Is that convenient for you? Great. What are the hours on a Friday?
You don't have any extras tonight.
8 to noon. That work? Okay. Okay, so let's start through. Article 1 is a report of it's a report of committees. The only report that we'll be getting this year is from the chairman of the 300th Celebration Committee, John LeBeau. I've asked him to limit his comments to no more than 45 minutes. So I think he'll have a great succinct message. Article 2. Oh, there you go. Hey, great service. Thank you. That's all you do there is vote to accept the report. Article 2 is funding $10,000 toward the 300th Celebration Committee. Again, a majority vote. We will then do the annual appointment of the members of the Wright and Harlow Trust. And again, a majority vote. The first bundling we'll have is Bundle 4, and that's Article 4 and 5, the payment of prior year bills in FY24 operating budget adjustments. Mr. Mizikar will report on both. You want to tell them?
Sure. These are two articles that we always put on the annual town meeting warrant, and they enable us to make financial changes to the current year budget or pay bills from a prior year, which is required by general laws of the Commonwealth, but we don't have any action to take on these items. So this would be, you will hear the chair of the select board recommend defeat of this article. And I will take the liberty to explain that we have a special provision of our charter and our Representative Town Meeting Act that prohibits us from passing over any article. So we have to vote each and every article up or down with a yes or no vote. It can't be tabled or otherwise use parliamentary procedure to discard an article. So you'll hear the select board chair in this instance recommend defeat of an article, and we are asking town meeting members for these articles, since there is no business to be taken, to vote no on them, and that will simply get them off the warrant with no consequence.
Great, thank you. Did I hear a question? No, okay. Article 6 is to fund the override stabilization account. Mr. Mizikar?
So that is placing money into a reserve account of the town that we will be using in the future to cover operating expenses. It's part of our override model and financial stabilization program.
Article 7 is the FY25 operating budget general fund. So you will see on page 9 of the report of the Finance Committee, Article 7. The way we do this is we go page by page within this budget. So we'll start on page 9, move to page 10. I'll call each item in terms of 119 Personnel Board, 122 Select Board, etc. Page 11. And that way, if anybody has a question along this way, we deal with it right then and there. And we walk our way through pages 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 23. We'll then get to interest, which is on page 24. And then we stop with the municipal side of the house, and then we go to another package item you'll see, which is a very thorough package from the Shrewsbury Public School System. At that time, Mr. Mizikar will take a deep breath, and the superintendent and likely the chair of the school committee will come to the podium that will be in this position, and walk through their budget for the coming year. Again, any questions that might come up from town meeting members, they'll deal with them at that time. When we are done with that element of that portion of the budget, we will then go to page 27 and finish it up, and then take a final vote on the motion as presented. That's a simple majority vote. Now, on Article 8, 9, and 10, we have chosen to bundle those. Kevin, do you want to give a brief description of each?
Sure, we're just using, with the first two articles, 8 and 9, outside funding from Selco to help lower the impact on taxpayers and on the tax levy. So that reduces our revenue side from the tax levy, our need for additional revenue from the tax levy. And Article 10 is using free cash to do the same thing, and free cash is a reserve asset of the community and not in the current year's tax levy.
So we'll walk through 8, 9, 10, and then if there aren't any questions, then we'll take a vote on Bundle 7. Yes, sir. You should have received a colored package, a colored sheet. If you don't, we'll have copies. We'll have some extra copies for Monday night. Alex, could you bring some just in case? Thank you. But you know what? The bundling is sometimes at a town meeting, there won't be any questions, right? So you'll go 8, 9, 10, there won't be any questions, so fine, you've bundled it, you take a vote, you're done. But the important thing for you to remember as a member is any question, any article, any time, simply raise your hand. Thank you, Kevin, on that one. So now we'll go to Articles 11, 12, 13, and 14 under Bundle 8. They are the enterprise funds. Kevin?
Yeah, they're the operating budgets for our utilities. And our utilities are funded through special rates that are raised, and you'll recognize those rates that are raised as your water and sewer bills. So those funds can only be used for water and sewer purposes. So this is for day-to-day operations of those 4 departments.
Article 15 stands alone as the operating budget for education and government. Public?
Yeah,
For PEG, public education and government.
We use these funds. This is a fee that's assessed on cable bills within the community. It's the franchise fee, and those funds are dedicated to the operation of Shrewsbury Media.
Kevin, what's the difference? We all know there's a basic difference, but can you draw the line through the subtlety between Article 7, Article 8, CATV, and Article 15, the PEG?
Sure. So the PEG access is an assessment that subscribers pay on their cable television bill, whereas the money that comes in from the cable TV is the Selco Commission providing those funds to the general fund in the budget to offset the tax levy. So it's a special vote of the Commission to dedicate those funds over to the town.
Everyone square on the subtle but important difference? Okay. Then we will move to Articles 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. They tend to be, I think they've always been here, it seems to me. In most cases, they tend to set limits or transfer of funds. Kevin, do you want to walk through each, please?
Yeah, sure. 16 is where we're starting, right? Did I
Yes.
get that right? So, scroll on my computer. So 16, we cover the out-of-pocket expenses of disabled police and firefighters. So that's what this funding is for. It's using $6,576 to cover those expenses, and this is on a reimbursement basis, so we have substantiated those costs. Article 20 is transferring money into an insurance trust fund that we use to pay out deductibles for our various insurance premiums of the town. It's money that can be used in any year to cover insurance-related deductible costs. Article 18 is moving money, $2.1 million into the general stabilization account. The general stabilization account is the town's rainy day fund, and it's a reserve asset of the community that would use in dire economic need. Article 19 is placing money into the stabilization fund that's set aside for sewer purposes. 20 is an interesting article where we set the spending limits of what is known as revolving funds. And revolving funds are simply where we charge a fee for a particular service and dedicate those funds back to the operating expenses associated with that service. So this isn't actually expending any money, but it is setting a maximum expenditure limit on how much we can spend for COA transportation and at the Donahue Rowing Center.
Just one moment, please. Mark Adler?
Yeah, Jim, I have a question for Mr. Viscar about the Article 16. You're saying that the amount is reimbursed. Is it reimbursed expenses incurred in this current fiscal year?
It is expenses incurred by the disabled police and firefighters from roughly March 1st through February 28th. So we reach out to them and say what expenses have been incurred in the last year, substantiate that, and then put it on the town meeting warrant.
Okay, so this is already. Sorry. So these are expenses that have already been incurred, and so that's how you can have such a precise number then.
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay. So this isn't like budgeting for the future year,
It is not.
and nor is it counting. Excuse me. Nor is it counting, say, as prior year expenses that we were taking care of earlier. It's kind of a different category.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
correct.
Yes, just one second. Liz has the portable mic.
I just had a quick question about the $400,000 for the Donahue Rowing Center.
Sure.
I apologize, and if this is, not the forum, but what exactly are you spending that money or putting that money aside for?
So it is a maximum amount that we're allowed to expend, so it's not necessarily that we're going to expend that, but those funds are used for the general maintenance and upkeep of the property.
But correct me if I'm wrong, people pay to use it.
Correct.
It goes into this fund. So my tax bill isn't going into this fund.
100%.
So it's a revolver.
Yep.
The Rowing Association had sort of the control over that's the town of Shrewsbury building?
It's the town of Shrewsbury property and managed through our Public Buildings Department.
Okay, thank you.
How's James doing, by the way? Good. Okay, so where are we, Kevin?
21.
21, go ahead. 90, Chapter 90 funds.
So this is a receipt of dedicated funds from the Commonwealth that can only be used for roadway improvement and related purposes. So this isn't spending any dollars either. It's just receiving money that will be transferred from the state to our accounts at some point during the upcoming fiscal year.
And the 22, transfer of funds, sale of cemetery lots.
Yep, so this, we raise money in the sale of cemetery plots, and we will be transferring those to offset some of the salaries and expenses related to the operation of the cemetery department.
Here we go. Article 23 and 24 are separate appropriations. Kevin, do you want to cover those?
Yeah, 23 is funds that we set aside for the management of lakes, ponds, and waterways. The vast majority, or a significant portion of these funds goes to weed control within Lake Quinsigamond and related bodies of water, and then we've also used them in prior years for any other water quality improvements to other bodies like Old Mill Pond and things like that.
Comments? Quick, okay. And FYFS.
Yeah, sure. So Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services was set up to provide services directly to Shrewsbury residents, and the town funds $326,000 this year to cover the cost of some of those services, mainly mental health clinicians for individuals within the community.
Great, thank you. Ignore Bundle 13. We had a little Scrivener's error there. Article 25 is the capital improvement plan from the general fund. It's a majority vote. 26 is a sewer article that allows for potential of borrowing, so it's a 2/3 vote. And Article 27 is the stormwater capital improvement plan, another majority vote. Kevin, anything to talk about in those three?
No, I mean, that's what it is. The general capital improvement plan, as you see, is detailed out there. It's a variety of items, and then very similar things, but because the sewer and water programs are managed as a separate business of the town, that's why we take these things separately. So general fund items are handled through the general capital improvement plan, and then each individual enterprise fund or separate business is funded separately.
Thank you. We'll then go on to Article 28, which is a 2/3, and Article 29, which is also a 2/3 vote. Kevin, do you want to explain the
Yeah.
difference?
Article 28 is a rather large article, and I'll get to the details of that, but we are funding a couple miscellaneous capital improvements. This is related to the water department and the water system. It's a large article because you'll see there in the second part that's bolded, it says, and appropriate $18.5 million for the construction of the home farm PFAS treatment plant. So under federal EPA regulations, we are required to remove PFAS from our drinking water. This is a new contaminant that you've likely seen in the news. So we are actually requesting to borrow that $18.5 million through this article, and town meeting has to approve all borrowing authorizations for the community.
Article 29.
And then Article 29 is a unique article. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts only limits municipalities' ability to enter into long-term contracts. Normally, we can only enter into a contract for 3 years, but for this special purpose, which is the maintenance of water storage tanks, this section of the general laws allows us to enter into a 15-year contract for those purposes.
And why is a 15-year contract in the town's interest as opposed to the more standard length?
Right, so this is, we get the economy of the long-term agreement with a single provider, so they'll provide us a comprehensive plan of what their action is each and every year, so it prevents us from having to maybe deal with 5 or 6 different vendors over that 15-year period, and provides a better overall service and maintenance plan for this critical part of our infrastructure.
Yes, sir. Just wait for the microphone. I forgot we're broadcasting.
Thanks. The references to the previous annual town meeting, what occurred in those meetings? Was it the amount?
Yeah, the money was put into place.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is there an existing contract that's about to end? What's the timing of this?
So, no, we put these funds in place and then found through the procurement process that this was the best approach to enter into a long-term agreement. And so now we're seeking the authorization to use this part of the general law to enter into it.
So currently, what's the contract in place?
We don't have a contract
There's
in
nothing
place.
there.
There's
so
nothing
it's
in
to
place,
start.
sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So because of that desire to take advantage of the economies, it requires a 2/3 vote. 30, Kevin, fund the expansion of cemetery, revise existing funding.
Right, so this is purely a financial approach and financial management offering to town meeting. At the annual town meeting last May, we funded the entire cost of the cemetery expansion project, but part of that funding was through a borrowing authorization. So through this article, we're seeking to transfer $1,316,328 in cash that we have on hand to eliminate the need to borrow and obviously not pay interest. So it's just a financial management move that we think is in the best interest of the community.
Thank you. 31 is the transfer of funds to the opioid special revenue fund, again, a majority vote.
Yeah, so the town has been a part of class action lawsuit settlements with opioid producers and distributors, and we receive funds in prior fiscal years that through the details of the Massachusetts general laws and the financial structures that municipalities have to follow. We needed those funds to be appropriated by town meeting. They have ultimately weren't appropriated within the same fiscal year. They flowed into free cash. But now we're looking to transfer those specific dollars from free cash into this special fund so we can use them for a limited set of uses to prevent opioid and substance abuse in the future in accordance with the settlement agreement. So it's a lot of technical things going on with the general laws and our financial parameters that we can use. So it's highly technical, but we won't have to do this going forward because the state has changed some laws and regulations surrounding these settlement funds.
Thank you. Article 32 is a citizen's petition. The lead petitioner is not a member of town meeting. However, others who have signed are members. So they will be giving an opening presentation. Generally, as I described earlier, the chair of the select board, because the select board puts together the warrant, they moves the printed motion, the vice chair seconds it, finance committee, etc. In this case, I will recognize a petitioner to move the question. No doubt they'll have someone lined up for a second. And then I will ask the Finance Committee for its recommendation. They will then come up and present, and then we will open it to the floor for anyone to ask other questions or offer an opposing view. That is a proposal to amend the zoning, so therefore it's a 2/3 vote. Article 33 is a fiscal year 2025 CPA funding transfer and reserves, which is again a majority vote. Kevin, could you explain what this vote does relative to the following articles?
Sure. So this vote is an item that you'll see on each and every annual town meeting warrant. It's an item where we're taking the total amount of funding that we anticipate receiving them and through town meeting's appropriation authority, placing them into statutorily required reserve accounts. So it sets funds aside for historic preservation, community housing, open space and recreation, and limits the future use of those funds by the CPC and ultimately town meeting for only those purposes. And then you'll see the bulk of the funding, over $660,000, goes into a general reserve that can be used for any of those above purposes at the discretion of the CPC and again, ultimately through a town meeting vote.
Now, thank you. Article 34 is not bundled with the other CPA proposals because our housing authority was successful in securing another funding source for the $7,000 study. So therefore, the select board will ask that this be defeated. You then go to Article 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, which is each of the specific proposals that the CPA has recommended that the town meeting support and fund. I think they're all self-explanatory. If there are any questions, please just ask away. So now we shift from overwhelming majority to overwhelming 2/3 vote. So 40 is to authorize a grant of easement on town land. Anytime you do an easement or borrowing, you require 2/3. I think you'll find it to be a complete graphic in your package explaining what this is all about. We'll then go to 41, which is the acceptance of the public ways for Purrington Street, again a 2/3. And then everyone hold your seats. The excitement starts with all of these zoning bylaws, which are all 2/3. Oh, we got a couple of little majorities in here, but you have the digital signage, farmers markets. Correct me would you describe some of this as cleanup?
Yes. Well, I mean, 42, we are adjusting where digital electronic signs are able to be put in place by businesses throughout the community, so it's a little bit of an expansion.
Mm-hmm. Farmers markets?
Yeah, farmers market is a cleanup. It just balances how much, what the mix of vendors is allowed to be at our farmers markets.
And then Article 44 and 45 are unique in that, as a result of a change in the state law last year, I believe it is, these are zoning amendments, but only require a majority vote because they are focused on increasing housing. Kevin, do you want to give the folks a brief on 44, commonly known as the MBTA zoning?
How far back should we go?
I think just last week.
So Article 44 is what the the town was working on to propose for compliance with MBTA zoning. It's creating a zoning district where high-density housing would be permitted. As we worked our way through this very complicated process, and things have happened throughout other communities in the Commonwealth, the Select Board has recognized that we're not quite ready in our endeavor to bring it to town meeting for their consideration, that there's some other things that we need to look at. And since we have until December 31st of this calendar year to have town meeting work towards or vote for compliance with this new state law, they have recommended defeat of this article and delaying actual action on it until the fall special town meeting.
So, yes, sir.
Just a question on the two-thirds versus simple majority. Is that a state mandate that it has to be a majority vote versus two-thirds?
Traditionally, anything involving zoning was always a two-thirds. Last year, I believe it was, there was a vote, there was a change in state law that if you, a variety of things, but one of them is if you are increasing the likelihood of housing, it's a simple majority. So that this article, which would potentially increase residential units, is a simple majority. And the next one, which seeks to increase senior housing, again, more housing, therefore a simple majority.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. What
You're
was that
just
again?
hoping that we defeat this one regarding the MBTA zoning. The next one will be different.
Yes.
Okay.
The request will be to defeat one and then to have whatever conversation the body would please to have regarding the senior housing overlay district. Kevin, do you want to touch on that?
Sure. So this proposal actually technically already exists throughout the course of a variety of different sections of our zoning bylaw. And what it does is, given what we believe will be a growing interest in this type of age-restricted housing development throughout the community, centralizes and clearly codifies the rules and regulations associated with any multifamily housing that is age-restricted. So brings a lot of clarity to what a developer would need to do, and just puts it all in one place within a single section of the zoning bylaw.
And because it's seeking to enhance the housing stock of the Commonwealth, it requires a simple majority. Yes?
Thank you, Liz. Can you explain how an overlay district would work differently than a regular zoning district?
Absolutely. Mr. Mizuka.
So kind of how it sounds. Throughout the town, we have, a variety of use districts, which means you would be able to construct structures that could be used for residential use or a commercial use. But an overlay district allows developers to consider what's there in the underlying zoning district. Let's say that's commercial. And so they would have, by right, the opportunity to go in and develop some type of commercial use. Let's say it's retail. But through an overlay district, they may be able to utilize the language that's there within a particular area of town to construct some other type of use. So we've used it very successfully in town for a lot of mixed-use developments. So Lakeway Commons is actually a commercial business zone that we allowed mixed-use development to occur through an overlay district. So that developer, it's called, drew upon the overlay, and that allowed them to also construct residential there. So we have a variety of overlay districts along particular corridors like Route 9 and Route 20, and then in some other areas where we're trying to incentivize a particular desirable use. For instance, in the area of South Street between Route 9 and Route 20 for office and research type uses. So those are overlay districts. It provides developers flexibility to consider what's in their best interest and incentivize a particular desired outcome that the town wants to see occur there.
You square with that, Mark? Very good. Yes, sir.
Sorry, just to follow up on this state law change for housing. Who could point me to the statute on that?
Yeah, sure. So it occurred at...
Kevin
if you don't
can.
mind, Mr.
Oh,
Moderator.
great.
So, yeah. So it actually, time gets away from all of us. So it occurred through Chapter 358 of the Acts of 2020. So it's in Chapter 40A of the general bylaws, or of the general laws of the Commonwealth. So that's where all zoning at the state level is. So both of those references would, through a simple Google search, would get you to the right place. You're welcome.
2020, that long ago?
That's what I said, time gets away
Yeah,
from us.
boy, it does get away from you. And just because there seems to be a level of interest here, pursuant to the amendment, the proposed zoning bylaw allows for multifamily or mixed-use developments as of right, open space residential development, accessory dwellings, special permit accessory, reduces parking requirements. So I'm sorry about that. But basically anything to enhance the likelihood of residential development in the Commonwealth. Now, it can't just have a little bit in the zoning change. It has to be the overwhelming purpose. So we are now apparently focusing on nano breweries. We're in 46, 47, 48, 49. Those are 4 zoning changes that require 2/3 vote should they be adopted. Kevin, are they as like as one might think by the title?
They really are, and they're applying that particular type of use into several overlay districts that we have in the community based upon interest from associated business operators who would like to open up here in Shrewsbury.
Questions on those 4? Okay. 50, Article 50, amend the zoning map to deal with campus overlay district expansion with a focus on 333 South Street. Again, a 2/3 vote. Kevin?
Yeah, so this is one of the areas that I just spoke about between Route 9 and Route 20. We have a successful campus overlay district that was used in the development of the former town-owned land. It was known as Centec North or Allen Farm, and that has produced 2 buildings where high-end manufacturers and a variety of pharmaceutical or life sciences operators will be working from. And we're looking to expand this district with hopes that it can incentivize a developer to reinvigorate the UMass property at 333 South Street, which is basically vacant at this time. It's not providing any tax revenue. So this campus approach has been successful across the street, and we know that UMass, as the owners, very much want to see it redeveloped, and they've tried in the past, but they haven't been successful in landing a developer. So we think this zoning change will help enable redevelopment there.
51, amend the zoning bylaw for date changes. It's a 2/3 vote.
This is a very nuanced item, and there's a variety of considerations that come into play with lots and buildings throughout the community, dependent upon the date when zoning was established in any community in the Commonwealth. So zoning, as it was constructed or previously or currently identified in the zoning bylaw as of August 2nd, 1967, and that's when modern, full, detailed zoning with setbacks and regulated uses, et cetera, was put into place. But prior to that, there was some less sophisticated zoning that went into place in May 18th, 1955. And upon detailed review of the records of the town and presentation to town council, this is the more appropriate date to use. And we need to update the bylaws accordingly.
No one dares ask a question. Not on that one.
It's a unique date to every town.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And then we're back to majority votes, 2 general bylaws, and a retirement board matter. Kevin, do you want to give them the update on the utility pole and overhead wires bylaw?
Sure. So this is an initiative that is really has 2 purposes. One, it looks forward to the resiliency of our electrical grid as we look to rely more and more upon electricity in hopes of reducing climate-altering emissions. So as we rely more upon the grid, we want it to be more reliable and sustainable. So getting our utilities underground and less subject to weather and motor vehicle accidents and things like that. We wanted to, through this body, create a bylaw, a law within our town to require all future developments to go underground. This is an article that is supported by Selco. And second, of course, aesthetics. Most subdivisions already have their utilities undergrounded, but we want to make sure, again, this is codified and will be required in the future. So anytime there's a new development or expansion of overhead utilities and poles, they'll be not allowed. Those utilities will have to go underground.
Thank you. Yes, 1 second for the microphone, please.
Will it be like old homes will be required to make those changes as well?
No, not for existing
Not
homes.
existing ones?
Correct. Yep.
Article 53, adjust the annual cost of living adjustment for pension system.
So this article is actually going to be requested to be defeated as well. There's only a portion of public employees' pensions that it gets adjusted for cost of living every year. But the retirement board has requested the town meeting does not take favorable action on this article at this time.
So we'll ask to defeat that with a majority vote. And then the last item is 54, which is amend the general bylaw of Article 25 with the donation bin setback.
Sure.
And
So
you
we-
mean Article 25 of the bylaws, not Article 25 here.
Correct. So the general bylaws, Article 25, regulates the placement of the location of donation bins that private businesses are allowed to have on their property. This article was put in place a couple years ago with the intention of regulating them and making sure they don't become a nuisance and site issues within the properties that they're located. There was an undue and unanticipated restriction that was kind of hindering the spirit of the bylaw, and in some instances, it actually required the donation bins to be much closer to the front property line along the street than they otherwise could have accommodated, and tucked them behind the building and got them into a place that was less visible. So we're looking to make that adjustment so they're not subject to all the setback requirements within the zoning bylaws. But this is a general bylaw, just to be clear, and it would just be a majority vote.
Mark?
Sorry, I want to go back to the last article. I want to go back to the last Article 53. Why is there a recommendation to defeat that article? I know you said it was only a couple people or a few people, but what's going on there, please?
So the retirement board has not been able to review a final actuarial analysis this year yet. So the actuary is still working on where the position of the retirement fund as of January 1st, 2024. And without that information, and because if action was taken, it would require the retirement system pay more money out. They just want to be diligent in maintaining our very high funding level and not have a negative impact on it. This will likely come up at the fall town meeting or next annual town meeting once the retirement board feels comfortable with the financial information for the system.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned some of the articles are majority, some are 2/3. How is the actual voting process, and how do you determine it's reached those thresholds?
Sure. Part of my opening for the full meeting, I'll walk through, how we do things, what rules we follow, what books we follow, by way of example. I'll then remind people, which I didn't make anybody do this evening, but if you want to speak at town meeting, we ask that you would come down to this microphone or that microphone, or if you're unable to make that easy move, just raise your hand and a mic will be brought to you. Please identify yourself and your precinct. Those are two important things. The votes are taken based on what the state law is, whether it's being a majority or a 2/3, or I think we had a 4/5 a few years ago, because it was a very unique situation. We take them. I listen. As a moderator, if I think it's clearly 2/3 one way or the other, or a majority, I rule it. In the event I'm not comfortable, then I will call for standing vote. In the event someone thinks I've called it incorrectly, you just say, point of order, I'd like a standing vote. They need 7 other members of town meeting to stand with them, at which time I ask everyone to sit down. The tellers who work with the town clerk's office will make their position known so that we know everybody's down in front of them, so we know where the corral is. And then I will ask everyone who's voting in favor of that particular article to rise and stay standing until counted. And then the clerk's tellers will come down on writing and hand in 12, 15, whatever, for their section that they cover. And then I'll ask the yeses to sit. Then I'll ask the noes to please rise. And the tellers will do the same thing. Then they report that on a piece of paper to the clerk, who then does her quick math and looks up at me and says, this is the vote. And that's generally the way we always do it. So,
Does that actually happen?
the standing vote?
Yeah.
I've never called one that I couldn't clear it. I've been doubted several times, but I was right. But still, I love calling the standing vote. So whatever you want to do. It's up to the membership. It's all organic within the 4 corners.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, folks? If not, thank you all very much. Thank you for coming, and have a great evening.